Who picked the game this month? I want names. Heads will roll for this one. This is EpicLuca with your Yokoi Kids Game of the Month game review for September 2019, and for some reason, someone has chosen Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball. Now, I'm going to try and take as objective a look at this game as possible and will reserve my own judgments for the end. Though I'm sure you'll automatically assume I'm not going to like this game due to not really being much of a sports fan, but that isn't the case. I've actually played a number of sports games over the years and enjoy them if they're well done, such as with NHL Hits or NFL Blitz, and in fact actually enjoyed the N64 title Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. released only a year after the game I'm reviewing here. So, needless to say, I do have some experience with sports games. Now, I have quite a bit to say on the graphics, and taking into account the limitations of the Game Boy, these are actually some of the worst I've ever seen for the console. I'll start with the character sprites, as they are the most prominent thing you will see, with the sprite of the batter being the most visible one you will see over the course of the game, and is arguably the best looking one, with the most detail out of any sprites in the game, though it is a shame they used the same sprite for all of the batters. The sprites for the fielders, on the other hand, seem even more minimalistic, with no detail in their outfit or appearance, so essentially, you have a field full of identical characters, and it can tend to get kind of confusing when you're playing out in the field. Another glaring issue with the characters is that they have a white outline around them, whether it be the batter, the pitcher, or the ones out in the field, they all have the same white outline. Now, I understand why they did this, as the color on the field is very similar to the color on parts of the characters, particularly the batter, so it kind of helps them to stand out, as glaring as it is. Moving on to the graphics of the stadium, the field itself is fine, just a solid green color with some black dots to break it up, a few solid white lines for the base and foul lines, and some solid white squares for the bases, so nothing special but passable. Now for the crowd in the stadium, they are just a mess, with you barely being able to tell that they are supposed to be people. The game allows you to go a little further back from the crowd if you're able to hit a home run, and you can see there's a solid green field out there with a few plants growing and a few shadows to break it up. For the game modes, there's only 5 different kinds, with all of them being very similar, with only slight differences that really doesn't change up the gameplay. I'll tell you right now, I only tried 3 of them though, being an exhibition game, the Homerun Derby, and a game and season mode, so I'll offer up some insight on the other modes first. The All-Star Game in traditional baseball is a game to showcase the best players of the league, so for this game I would imagine that would include players of the time such as Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr., obviously, as he is the title player for the game, and they were both in the '96 All-Star Game, which is the season that this game takes its players and statistics from. There is also the World Series / Playoffs, which is the postseason of baseball, which consists of teams playing first to determine the champion of each individual league, and then a final best-of-7 series to determine the World Series champion, so really the gameplay is no different than what I'll be talking about with the other modes. The first mode I'm looking at the top of the chart is Exhibition, just a standard 1v1 full 9-inning game against the computer, so nothing special to talk about with this one. The next mode up is the Homerun Derby, which is a competition to see who can hit the most home runs while they are up to bat, with the player being allowed 10 outs before the game ends, with the objective to hit more home runs than the amount set by the computer player, which occurs before the player goes up to bat. And lastly is the Season Mode, which is a standard season of baseball with 3 different lengths, being 26 games for a short season, 78 games for a medium season, and 162 games for a long season. And the average amount of time I noticed for what I played one game for was about an hour. So theoretically, in a season, you stand to play anywhere from 26 to 172 hours, depending on how long each game you play goes, though the gameplay still remains the same throughout, and it doesn't seem like there is a battery backup or a password system to save your progress, so it potentially means you have to play the entire season in one playthrough, which is too much of a daunting task for this game. Now, moving on from game modes to gameplay, starting with the fielding side, since that is the side you will always be started on. For pitching, only the B button throws the ball, with other directions on the D-pad dictating what pitch you'll throw. As I read, you can either throw a curveball, a fastball, or a changeup based on the direction you pick when pitching. though to me it seemed like I would either throw a fast or slow ball with the direction I pressed more dictating where the ball would go. If the opposing player manages to hit the ball, which happened more often than not against me, then you switch to fielding, which was quite possibly the worst part about this game, as it was hard to control your players out in the field, as not only do they not give you control of the player closest to the ball right away, and changing who you control in the field does not happen manually, so it seemed like every time I got a player close to getting the ball, they would just switch it to another player, making it harder to get to the ball in time. Though fielding the ball itself is actually handled okay for the Game Boy, as you just press a direction on the D-pad that corresponds with the base you want to throw to while pressing the throw button. For batting though, it's a little different, but you press the same button to bat as you did to throw in the field, and you can move your player around in the batter's box to a position that best suits you, but I found that moving him as close to the plate as I could served best for me. Like I said, it's the same button to hit that you would throw the ball in the field, but the A button is also used more here too, as it allows you to bunt, but I never once found myself using this. The hitting is actually even worse than the fielding, as there is a delay on your swing and it almost seems like you have to hit the button right as the pitcher throws the ball, or chances are you're going to miss, giving you no reaction time either, as there were times that I swung on some outside pitches that I wouldn't have otherwise had I been given time to react. Also, it seems like most of the time when I swing, if I don't outright miss, then I either foul the ball, hit a fly ball that's easily caught by an outfielder, or a line drive that again was easily thrown to the base I was running to. Very rarely was I able to get the player on base, but I was surprisingly able to hit a home run, though I have no idea how. And it's not like I was just half-assing it for the sake of my review either. I was actually putting in some real effort to try and have a competitive game with the computer, but I didn't have good enough control over my players in the field, and when I was at bat, I could never seem to hit the ball where I wanted, at least not through any conscious effort of my own, with it really just happening more so by accident. In my writing this, I had almost forgotten about the music and sound effects as well. I could just leave it at, it was bad, but since they didn't really give me much to work with, it won't take us that long to get through it. They play the one same track of music over the entirety of the game, from the time you start it up through the team selection and the game as well, never stopping or breaking for anything, with a few sounds being thrown in when you move your selection on the menu for the game type, the team you pick, and a few others, such as when the player swings the bat, catches the ball on a plate, and every time a pitch is thrown. But other than that, it's just the same repetitive music track of someone choking the guitar as they play it. This is one of the worst games I have ever played, not just for the Game Boy, but in general. And you can't attribute it to the limitations of the Game Boy either, as the console had been out for 8 years at this point, having established itself with a great library of games, some of which I've played for you here and on my channel in general. But this was not it. I honestly don't think I could find any redeeming qualities in this game. And like I said, I've played a few sports games and plenty of Game Boy games, and a few sports games on the Game Boy, and some of them were fairly decent, but this was not it.